Emperor Shadan, on his palatial home planet, is visited by a navigator of the Spicing Guild to discuss their plan to destroy the noble House Atreides by sending them to the spice manufacturing planet Arrakis, only to have their rival family of Harkonnens destroy them. While Shadan concerns himself with the family's patriarch, Duke Leto Atreides, the navigator is, through a mystical sense of foreboding, more concerned with Leto's son, Paul. On his own world of Caladan, Paul learns of Arrakeen and the city of Arrakeen from holographic film books, until he's interrupted by his master-at-arms, Gurney. The two train just in case the summons to Arrakis is a trap. After visiting his father, Paul dreams of Arrakis and a mysterious native girl that asks him about his homeworld. When he wakes, Paul is visited by the Reverend Mother of the Holy Order, the Bene Gesserit. Paul's mother, Jessica, takes Paul to be tested by the Reverend Mother, though begs her not to test him as no man has survived the tests of their order. When Paul survives the test, the Reverend Mother allows that perhaps Paul is the Messiah and tells him of the Water of Life. Soon after, the Atreides leave Caladan and travel across the universe to the desert planet Arrakis. Arriving on Arrakis, the Atreides find the city of Arrakeen in disrepair and full of Harkonnen traps. Both will hinder the production of spice. Without spice, the Atreides will lose Arrakis and their standing in the Empire. During a visit from a native Fremen woman, Jessica is presented with a crysknife, a symbol that the native people have already begun to believe Paul is their Messiah. Leto takes Paul and Gurney on his first trip to survey a spice mining machine. Despite having never worn a still suit, which will keep them alive in the desert, Paul puts his on perfectly in the Fremen style on his first attempt, shocking his Fremen guides. While surveying the enormous mining machine, the Atreides notice worm sign, evidence that one of the enormous sandworms that inhabit the planet is approaching. Choosing to forego his protective anonymity, Leto decides to save the workers on board the mining machine before it's consumed by the sandworm. That night, the Harkonnen launch their attack on Arrakeen. Paul's doctor poisons him and Leto, delivering them to the Baron, the head of the Harkonnen household. Before delivering Leto, the doctor installs a poisoned tooth in the Duke's mouth. While being escorted, Paul and Jessica escape using the voice. A powerful Bene Gesserit form of vocally compelling a subject into action. Their captors free them, and their ship crashes into the sand. In Arrakeen, Leto bites his poisoned tooth in an attempt to kill the Baron. As Paul sleeps that night, exposed to the natural spice in the sand, his dreams become more vivid than ever before. Through these visions, he discovers Jessica is pregnant. Sensing the death of his father, Paul swears vengeance. While trying to find safety in the desert, Paul and his mother are attacked by a sandworm. They are saved in the nick of time by a group of Fremen led by Stilgar. Initially suspicious of the duo, he immediately sees the power of the Bene Gesserit in Jessica and welcomes them into his tribe. It's here that Paul's introduced to Chani, the girl from his dreams on Caladan. The Fremen guide Paul and Jessica to their secret underground society, where water flows and there are thousands of Fremen. Paul offers to help the Fremen and lead them in a war to oust the Harkonnen from Arrakis using the weirding way of the Bene Gesserit. They follow him, believing him to be the Messiah of the outer world that was promised. While Paul trains the Fremen, Jessica is invited to take up a role of the Fremen Reverend Mother, their current being on the cusp of death. Jessica reluctantly drinks the Water of Life and begins the ritual. During the ritual, the current Reverend Mother realises Jessica is pregnant, but too late. Surviving the ritual, Jessica and her unborn daughter both become Reverend Mother. Jessica's survival also causes the Fremen to unilaterally christen Paul Muad'Dib. During the celebrations, Paul declares his love for Chani. Jessica gives birth to a daughter, Alia, who immediately begins speaking. Paul has finished training his new Fedaykin and starts taking them out to fight the Harkonnen. Between successful attacks, as the legend of Muad'Dib rises through the Harkonnen ranks, Paul learns to ride sandworms. His first ride is an enormous worm, the largest a first-time rider has ever ridden. Paul leads an attack on a mining machine, coming to blows with a group of smugglers. The battle is ended swiftly when Paul realises that among the smugglers is his old master-at-arms, Gurney. Fearing the increasing power of the legend of Muad'Dib, and knowing that Paul Atreides is still alive, the Spicing Guild orders the Emperor to reclaim control of Arrakis personally. On Arrakis, Paul takes a final step to fulfill the prophecy and drinks the Water of Life. The effect causes his younger sister and the Emperor's own Reverend Mother to share in his agony. As Chani tries to save him, the ritual also summons 7 sandworms to Paul. When he wakes, he is changed. He is Muad'Dib, an all-seeing god. He rallies the Fremen, alluding to his ulterior motives for war, and leads the attack on Arrakeen. A storm is approaching the city. The Emperor and his daughter Irulan are within its walls with the Harkonnen. Alia goes to the Emperor to pass Paul's message to him. As war rages outside, Alia kills the Baron with poison, though he dies in the maw of a sandworm before the poison takes effect. With the battle over, the Fremen take the Emperor, Irulan, and the Harkonnen warrior Fade hostage. Paul challenges Fade to a battle of honour, a final step to prove Paul's divinity. While the fight nearly kills Paul, he does succeed in killing Fade before using the voice to cause the Harkonnen body to explode. Paul demands the throne from the Emperor and takes Princess Irulan's hand in marriage, though reminding Chani that it is she who really has his heart. In the final act, Paul uses the voice to summon rain on Arrakis. The premise. Ruled by the Emperor, power of the known universe is actually in the hands of the religious order of the Bene Gesserit and their many prophecies. While the rise of House Atreides threatens to bring out one of these prophecies, a plan is formulated to quash the would-be Messiah, Paul Atreides, and his ambitious family. Paul and the Atreides are sent to Arrakis, the desert planet and centre of spice, the fuel for space travel and the source of the Bene Gesserit's prophetic powers. While Paul concerns himself with following in his father's footsteps to become Duke, his mother, herself a member of the Bene Gesserit, fans the flames of Paul's divinity among the Arakan locals, the Fremen. The Emperor's plan is put into action when the Harkonnen, the previous stewards of Arrakis, attack the capital in the dead of night. While Paul and his mother Jessica escape, Duke Leto Atreides dies trying to kill the Harkonnen leader, Baron Vladimir. In exile, Paul and Jessica are adopted by the Fremen community, winning them round with Jessica's Bene Gesserit powers and Paul's promise of revenge. Paul trains the Fremen in the Bene Gesserit's mystical fighting methods, cementing their belief that he truly is the Messiah their faith has promised them. Whether he truly believes he's the Messiah or not, Paul goes through the motions of prophecy, consolidating his power over the Fremen and turning them on the Harkonnen stronghold. Followed into battle by the Fremen and his love Chani, Paul and his family take back control of Arrakis, taking the Emperor hostage in the process. Paul, in victory, escalates himself to a godlike stature, taking the Emperor's title by taking his daughter in marriage and restoring reign to Arrakis with his elevated Bene Gesserit powers. Structure. Dune is a large book. Distilling it into a single blockbuster movie is no easy task. In this, the writer has proactively condensed the narrative to its core elements. The script shows a strong understanding of the source material while also being fully aware that the narrative rules of the screen are different to that on the page. Through this dedication to the source material, the writer has occasionally struggled with the pacing of this script. As seen in the synopsis above, there's a lot of material on the Atreides homeworld of Caladan before the inciting incident of Paul's arrival on Arrakis. Once arriving on Arrakis, however, very little time is spent establishing Arrakis, its customs and people before the Harkonnen attack and send Paul to the desert to fend for himself. Once in the desert, the Fremen seem to accept him as Muad'Dib almost instantly. While a forward momentum is crucial to a compelling script, the writer shouldn't feel scared to allow moments of character to breathe, so long as they propel the story. A prime example of this is when the Reverend Mother visits Jessica on Caladan. This scene is compelling, appropriately paced, and full of meaningful interactions. Paul's journey to become Muad'Dib is compelling. His provenance, alluded to in Act 1, comes to its natural conclusion by Act 3, and the writer has a clear idea of what this journey is. However, the writer seems to have been limited when writing this script. Not limited by the source material, but by the conventions of a feature film. Key elements of Paul's journey are omitted from the script in order to conform to a structural convention. Is there perhaps room in the script for Paul to question his divine provenance or his desire to sit upon the Emperor's throne? Understanding the wider context of the universe is clearly a crucial element of the writer's interpretation of the source material. The inclusion of a prelude scene between the Emperor and the Guild is a clear example of the writer creating a setting, stakes, and genre immediately. Scenes such as these, positioned as they are currently in the script, can frequently detract from the drama the audience is invested in. If this is the story of Paul Atreides and the prophecy of his divinity, the script should begin with one of those elements. If this is a story of Paul's rise to become Emperor of the known universe, this needs to be more appropriately threaded throughout the rest of the script. Narrative films are, frequently, easily defined as either a 3-act or a 5-act structure. This script appears to be 4 acts of unequal weighting. The first act takes place on Caladan, The second follows the Atreides' attempt to control Arrakis, the third follows Paul's rise through the Fremen ranks, and the fourth is the final battle for Arrakeen. It may be in the writer's best interest to consider either a 3 or 5 act structure for the script. While not necessary, the lack of these structures can cause a script to appear clumsily written. A 5-act structure may cause the script to be too long, and a 3-act structure may mean key material is lost, but either would give the writer and thus the audience a stronger footing when exploring such alien material. One way to assist a stronger structure may be in Dune's villain. Many stories are defined by a strong antagonist. This script again shows reverence for the source material by including the Baron, Fade, and the Emperor as antagonists for Paul's story. However, the script is unclear which, if any, is the leading threat. The Baron is a well-realised and ever-present antagonist, whose end is both true to the source material and cinematically delivered. Despite orchestrating the story to an extent, the Emperor features very little, except to bookend the story. Could his presence be given more weight throughout? Overall, the structure of the script is true to the book on which it's based, but lacks the concise language of screenplay demands. By muddying the waters between source and adaptation, the script lacks the focus it would need to draw audiences. Its final act, however, is extraordinarily cinematic, and a clear realisation of what the next draft of this script could be. Character. The question of whether Paul Atreides is the Messiah of Arrakis is threaded throughout the language of almost every character. From Stilgard to the Reverend Mother of the Emperor, everyone is defined by this divine question. One character, however, who seems to care little for Paul's journey is Paul Atreides himself. Paul's lack of definable identity is clearly pulled from the source material, but while the reader of a book can fill the blanks of personality with their own, a film audience will not be so forgiving. To survive as a protagonist on film, Paul needs an identifiable want. Throughout this script, it's alluded to that Paul's want is to achieve his destiny. What that is, in his own mind, seems to change from scene to scene with no real causality. Duke of Caladan, Scholar, Duke of Arrakis, Messiah of the Fremen, Emperor, or something else entirely. The writer has a clear understanding of Paul's place within this story, from the Reverend Mother's divine authority to the Emperor's weak grip of power. The context of Dune and the characters that inhabit it are, on the whole, fully realised. Without a protagonist to walk the audience through it, they likely won't engage with the material. Aside from Paul, there is one glaring element that will require attention in future rewrites. The role of women in society has changed drastically from Dune's original print. The notion that we who carry the name of concubine, history will remember us as wives, is outdated. Reducing the female characters to mother, love interest, or marital prospect will alienate half the movie-going audience and make the project near impossible to cast exceptional talent. The role of the Emperor's Reverend Mother proves there is space for women in this universe. The writer should exploit that. If side characters like Gurney Halleck can go from duty-bound master-at-arms to smuggler, space can be made for Chani to show similar change and inner conflict. The characters of Dune are, on the whole, well realised, both as individuals and as emblems of the religious themes presented in the script. Giving some narrative focus to Paul and better realising the female characters would elevate this script to become something truly exceptional. Dialogue. Screenwriting and film as a whole is a visual medium. The script routinely showcases an exceptional understanding of this, whether it's the Atreides' method of intergalactic travel or the entire final act. Each character's dialogue within that context is clearly identifiable, while maintaining the story's unique tone and atmosphere. While there are moments of real strength in the dialogue, the writer does frequently show signs that they don't completely trust their audience to follow the story. The lore of Dune is dense, and its language is alien in many ways. Audiences, however, are more intelligent than this script often gives them credit for. The clearest example of this is the use of the inner monologue. As an exercise, the writer should remove every single example of inner monologue and consider ways to visually show the character's inner thoughts. Knowing what a character is thinking is crucial, but spelling it out through an inner monologue can deprive the actor the ability to explore the character more fully, and robs the audience of the ability to interpret what they're seeing. In a story so concerned with the importance of prophetic interpretation, it seems redundant to spell everything out for the audience. The writer may also find, upon removing the inner monologue, that the remaining dialogue is as set out above. clear and concise. The lost lore and important story details may be folded in through other means, as direct dialogue or more visual methods. The screenwriter may find, however, that the story works better without the lost lore. Screenwriting is a visual medium. If dialogue can be avoided, it should be, unless the words are poetry. Visual grammar. The current script for Dune sits at around 117 pages. This would indicate a runtime of roughly 2 hours. Considering the length of the source material, this is an enormous achievement from the writer. Upon reading the script, it appears the produced film may be considerably longer. This is mostly due to the visual style of the script. The writer should consider in future how reading the script can denote pace and tone. Blocks of text are difficult to read and are often not a proper reflection on how long a scene may be. Spacing the directions also helps the reader properly visualise the script as a film, rather than a sequence of events. Within this, the writer shows clear understanding of the visuals they want to portray. From the sandy dunes of Arrakis to the black skies of Gadi Prime, the genre and tone are threaded excellently throughout the script. A further note on the formatting of the script. It is crucial the writer creates the script with the layman in mind. Characters' ages, for example, are crucial when introducing them, especially where Alia is concerned. As a reader, the audience is under the impression she's a newborn child, yet with no referenced passage of time, she appears before the Emperor walking and talking. Clear formatting of the script would clear up many of these ambiguous elements that detract from an otherwise compelling story. There are ample opportunities for the writer to elevate the material here. Mining the source material for religious imagery to appropriately pepper throughout the script, be that setting, costume or dialogue, would further assist the writer in tightening the theme of this script. The script should be a written reflection of what the writer wants the audience to experience. Actions should be punchy and slower scenes should reflect that, and all should be anchored in the visual. Conclusion. Dune is a lovingly created recreation of its source material, mined expertly for cinematic kernels that can create a compelling feature film for a wide audience. With careful restructuring, and by leaning more heavily on the visual over audio, this script could be a visual feast. That said, it becomes increasingly clear that in a modern climate, this version of Dune will never make a compelling conventional blockbuster. To make the necessary amendments that would satisfy fans of the book, the story would become too dense for conventional cinemagoers. To create an accessible blockbuster of conventional length would alienate the fans that would otherwise be this story's biggest champions. In this modern climate, however, there is an option the writer should seriously consider. Peak TV. Apple TV, Netflix and HBO, to name a few, are proving again and again that dense science fiction and fantasy can be properly and lovingly adapted for long-form television. Dune, in this current iteration, is already primed for adaptation into episodic television. In fact, its current structure seemingly demands it. Caladan, arrival to Arrakis, the rise through the Fremen, and the final battle. The key episodes have been outlined already. Foundation on Apple TV has shown that story density and budget are no longer an obstacle for TV, while Marvel Studios' The Marvels has shown that CGI-heavy blockbuster movies are lowering in visual quality. When pursuing this project into its next draft, the writer should seriously consider reworking it for television.